Alright, this action figure I am ecstatic to jump into. So we've had this figure on the radar since April of last year, and we're just now getting it. I think it was December we were supposed to get it, and it got delayed, and unfortunately I had to go ahead and update the calendar. I've talked about that a lot on my channel, so I don't need to go back into that. But what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to compare this action figure to the SH MonsterArts version. And I'm not really going to tell you guys which one is better, because in my opinion, I'll just say this. It is subjective in my opinion. Both the figures have their pluses and their minuses. However, though, specifically, this is going to be about reviewing this action figure. And if you want a review on the SH MonsterArts action figure, I've already done a review, so I linked you up in a corner. You can go ahead and click that and check that out if you want to see just the SH MonsterArts Godzilla Evolved. But right here, we're going to talk about this one. We're going to get in depth, get some nice shots, and then after that, we're going to do a comparison. So let's go ahead and jump over to the box art. The box art of this action figure is pretty visually appealing. You have a nice picture of Godzilla Evolved. It seems like there is also a slight blur if you look at the corner of Godzilla's face. You have this pink, purple, and yellow and orange palette. And of course the Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire Exquisite Basics logo. The logos you would expect on the corner. Nice sunrise. On one side you have a nice shot of Godzilla that we've seen in the promotional shots. And on the opposing side, we have a picture of Godzilla's spines. Flip to the top, all we have is this nice fade from this yellow all the way to about this pinkish color in the corner, the Godzilla X Kong New Empire logo. And on the bottom, the exact same. The box art on the very back is what we've come to expect from Hiya toys. Various information about the action figure, promotional pictures, and the Godzilla X Kong New Empire logo, and of course the QR code. And now, let's go ahead and talk about the actual action figure. When this figure was first actually publicly unveiled, and I'm not talking about the prototype, I'm talking about the actual final product, it did have a few criticisms, and that criticism was the fact that essentially the scaling was not correct, and that became more apparent once people actually got theirs in hand. Now, if you're a collector that doesn't really care about scaling, and you just want a Godzilla X Kong to represent the evolved design from the actual movie, then you won't think nothing of this. However, though, if you care about the scaling, though, this is going to be one of those things that might kind of bother you a little bit. I can look past it. I will say this is going to be remedied with the next release, at least we believe, and so hopefully that's the case, but it just, unfortunately, this design is not nailed as far as the scaling accuracy, but we can go ahead and take in the mold and appreciate it. And there is so much going on for the mold of this action figure. Just look at these scales. Just the little spikes, and there's even little indentions and details I did not notice initially when I first got this action figure out of the box. It's a nice look at the legs. Also does have those nice lengthy arms that we saw in the movie, because I do believe this Godzilla had some of the more lengthy long arms, especially I noticed that in that scene when he was running with Kong. And then we do have the little spikes as well on the elbows. It does seem like they did modify and move them a little bit so they're not interfering with the articulation, which I can go ahead and live with that, but maybe that's just my observation, and maybe I'm wrong. Take a look at the face, you can actually tell what's going on with the eyes, plenty of quills, spikes, fangs, and the teeth are actually pronounced. This is one area that did a much better job than the Godzilla 2014. When that one's released, I was actually worried about where Hiya Toys was going with their action figures, and I was just thinking, please do not drop the ball with this one, because personally, I preferred this design over Godzilla 2014. That's just my personal take, and I do believe they did a solid job as far as nailing the overall mold for this action figure. And so now we can go ahead and talk about one of the issues I have with this action figure, and that's the spines. Don't get me wrong, the mold and the overall shape of these spines looks fantastic. There are some spines that do look better than others, however, though, it is pretty bland as far as like the texture and the detail, and I do feel like my expectations were just higher and they were not exactly met. I've heard people say, damn, I wish I could go ahead and take the SH MonsterArts spines and just slap them on this one. Well, I echo that sentiment as well, and I do believe this one just seems like it was dropped a little bit there. Take a look at the mold all the way down to the tail. We do have a little bit of a warped spike going on at the tip of the tail. That is the only one I'm noticing on mine, fortunately, so just one quality issue. Other than that, though, there is a lot of positive about this action figure, and I gotta say that I am really proud with what they did. So let's get into this articulation now. We got the hinged jaw as usual. This is probably about the max range you can get out of it, and of course you can wiggle that tongue around, which is kind of expected out of Hiya Toys anymore. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts for the neck. Go ahead and move that neck all the way around, rock it. And it does seem to be kind of pliable, which this approach was also applied on Godzilla 2014. I think that was the first Godzilla that they had applied this to. You have the arm articulation, go ahead and swing all the way around. Double jointed elbows, which is something I'm a big fan of. Next we can go ahead and get those wrists to go ahead and rotate all the way around. And you can swing those arms all the way in and out, and there's no restrictions literally at all. Go to the ab articulation, go ahead and move this all the way around, no problem. This one's probably one of the more fluent Godzillas they've done, and one of the best parts is the fact you can actually throw this dorsal spike back, or dorsal fin, whatever you want to call it, and this helps get some extra range. Now when I look at this is actually fantastic, and honestly, it's one of those new things I don't think I've really seen anybody actually do. If SH MonsterArts has done this in the past, I guess I haven't known, but to my knowledge, this is one of the first Godzilla action figures to apply this. You can go ahead and swing the legs in and out. You can go ahead and spin the legs as well as usual. Double jointed knees, feet that rock and spin. And for the tail, we have 16 cuts for the tail. This is just ball joints on ball joints, and I do like how they're applying this rather than going with the bendy wire, which we saw out of NECA. And this is what I'm liking about Hiya Toys. Always looking for something new and trying to innovate when it comes to tooling their figures. And I do expect them to go ahead and do that every year to make things much more smoother. I don't feel like this figure fights me at all, by the way, too. So there's one grand thing that I'm happy to report, and that was an issue early on with, say, the Godzilla 2019. And now figure face-off time between the Hiya Toys and the SH MonsterArts one. Now I'll go ahead and state this, both these action figures have their pros and their cons, and I'm going to kind of leave it to you guys to decide which one is better. I'll go ahead and talk about what I prefer on each one. But overall, though, I do feel like these are fantastic figures. Keep in mind the price differential of what you're paying, so about $100 more for this SH MonsterArts one. So for the face of these two, I definitely favor the Hiya Toys face. The approach for the yellowish teeth, the face looks much more menacing, and for whatever reason, I don't know what's exactly going on, but the SH MonsterArts figure kind of has an overbite going on. And I will say that the eyes are a lot more visible, like you can tell with that yellowish eyes going on with the eyeballs. And the teeth are just too white and clean for my liking, honestly. And that's just another reason why I prefer Hiya Toys in their approach, because I feel like I prefer that gnarly look that we see out of the Hiya Toys one. It just nails the essence and the likeness much better than what we see out of SH MonsterArts. A nice look side by side. One of the biggest things I'll go ahead and point out is you will notice there is this random spike on the side right there. Hiya Toys does not have that exactly, but that one is just kind of like out there and just sticks out like a sore thumb. And when you look at the texture on the side, the texture is much more interesting on Hiya Toys. So much more to see, and it just seems like it gets a little bland and lazy on the SH MonsterArts one. And when we compare the spines, I gotta say this is where SH MonsterArts just beats the hell out of Hiya Toys. I can't speak on why they went with the choice they went with, but the texture is just much more appealing when you look at SH MonsterArts. Not to mention the fact they went with the translucent spines, which look much better, especially behind the right lighting. Hiya Toys, the expectations are higher. We've seen much better scales. It's not like this is a really small scale for these spines. There's a lot of detail that could have been put in there, just not there, just non-existent. Nice look at the chest side by side. The chest seems to be much more broad on the Hiya Toys one, but one thing I'll go ahead and say about the SH MonsterArts one, it has this extra articulation up top for the chest, which has never been anything that Hiya Toys has exactly explored quite yet. I don't know what's going on with these random green paint apps throughout. I don't feel like any of them were there. SH MonsterArts just kind of threw it in there. You can also see it going on with the toenails. It looks like he's got some kind of infection going on, but that's just my assessment. And for comparison of the hands of the two, please note that the SH MonsterArts figure chose to paint the claws, as opposed to the strategy that Hiya had done, leaving the claws unpainted and the same color as the general skin. Now to my knowledge, I've seen concept art with painted claws, but I do believe the final film version was not, however. Nextly, we're taking a peek at the tail, and it does seem like the quality issues are much better for the SH MonsterArts one, so that's another area they win. It just seems like it's a lot cleaner and slick. Again, this all draws back to the spines. Now, in my humble honest opinion, I personally think the Hiya figure is closer to what we see on screen. It excels in further detail. However, SH MonsterArts wins in terms of articulation and the spines. You be the judge of which one you prefer. Now, I still believe that the SH figure is one of the better SH MonsterArts Monsterverse figures, in contrast to the complaints that we've gotten out of Scar King and Shimu. Now, for accessories, unfortunately, the Hiya Toys figure does not have really any interesting accessories, just two swappable hands. Rest assured, we will see more accessories in the future when the next iteration of Hiya's Godzilla Evolved does come on out with an atomic breath piece. This is where it'll be marketed around with the heat ray effect. It's essentially just the heat ray Godzilla Evolved. That will be releasing sometime next year. So let's do more size comparisons. The female Muto, GVK Skullcrawler, Hiya Shimu, SH MonsterArts GVK Mechagodzilla, SH MonsterArts Hedera, NECA Godzilla 1954, SH MonsterArts GVK Kong, SH MonsterArts Godzilla 95 from the ending sequence, Hiya King Ghidorah 1991, SH MonsterArts Destroyer, and finally Hiya Toys King Ghidorah 2019. If you're one of those collectors that really cares about the scaling being correct for all these action figures and actually reminiscent of what we see on screen, that's going to be a big nitpick for you. However, though, worry not, Hiya Toys does have a Godzilla Evolved Heat Ray version that will remedy this. At least that's what I'm thinking. I will say that will probably mean that collectors probably would like to see this Godzilla upscaled a bit more, because you will want a standard Godzilla. The Heat Ray one looks fantastic as looking at the pictures, and I'm honestly thrilled for the action figure. But for now, this one though, I do believe is one of the best they've released. It is way better than the Godzilla 2014, and it's one of those ones I can look at it on the shelf and think, yeah, that's actually a pretty good action figure, and I understand and know the likeness of the action figure and character it's going for. The articulation is innovative. If you would like to get this action figure, I've got a link down below for not just this one, but the SH MonsterArts one on Calcus.com. They've been my go-to, and I preferred them for the most part collecting my Godzilla action figures. Communication has been fantastic with them, by the way, as well, so that's another reason why I favor them. But if you choose to go elsewhere, hey, that's cool with me. I'm not going to criticize you for shopping elsewhere. It's your personal choice as long as you get the action figure and what you want. And I'm not going to tell you to get the SH MonsterArts one or the Hiya one. I'm not going to jump on board one side and tell you which one's worse and which one's better, because I believe that's subjective. You spend your hard-earned money where you want to, and I guarantee either figure you're going to end up loving, even if you end up spending money on the SH MonsterArts action figure. But this one is definitely one of the better, and honestly, we are on a good streak from Hiya Toys. You know, Shimu, King Ghidorah 91, we got this, and next up, we've got Kong from GVK coming out, the standard Kong, and who knows where we're going from there. I'm hoping we can get at least 4 more action figures. I made a video reviewing and recapping all of the action figures that are coming out, so if you want to check that out, I've also got that linked up in the top corner, so go ahead and click that, or even down in the info section. You guys have a great day. Let me know what you think of this action figure. I love hearing your guys' thoughts. Catch you around. See you guys in the future.